Did Superman murder a couple of criminals to save his secret identity in a 1950s TV series, The Adventures of Superman?
Now, don't try to escape. Your lives wouldn't be worth a nickel. I'll see you soon.
In this video, I take a look at the controversial episode from the series' first season entitled The Stolen Costume. In this episode, Clark Kent is shown to only have one costume, that being the one his mother sewed for him in the very first episode.
Nothing will ever hurt it, Clark. It's made out of the red and blue blanket you was wrapped in.
The costume is stolen from Kent's apartment by a burglar who is wounded and lands on the doorstep of two crooks named Connie and Ace, who are always looking for some kind of angle to steal money.
Ace, look. He said Superman. This must be Superman's costume.
Once they have Superman's costume in their possession, Ace decides to set up a bomb in Kent's apartment to prove he's Superman, despite the fact that if Clark wasn't Superman, this would, of course, be murder.
Suppose me ain't Superman. It's a murder rap.
Uncharacteristically, Clark enlists the aid of a detective named Candy Meyers, but while asking for his help, will not reveal what the item was that was taken from his apartment.
That's right. I was at the doctor's office being examined. You see, the paper has a new group insurance plan. That's why it happened that
They explained the reason Clark wasn't wearing his costume underneath his suit. It was because he was at the doctor's office being examined, which would have had a whole lot of difficulties Clark would have had to work around. Things like what if they took blood or wanted to give him a shot. These types of situations have been dealt with many times in the comics, but that's a subject for another day. The idea that Clark would get someone else helping in a situation that might reveal his secret identity doesn't seem likely. On the other hand, he could have just said he was holding the costume for Superman for some made-up reason.
thing was in the closet. What thing? I told you, Candy, I can't tell you. What do you expect? Look.
But instead, Clark acts like he's obviously hiding something.
What have you been hiding in there, Kent? The family jewel?
Something a lot more valuable to me.
He almost comes across as though he's gotten involved in something shady himself. Candy almost buys the farm when the bomb Ace sets up goes off. Later, Candy, while pretending to be Clark, gets captured by the crooks. Clark runs in and knocks him out so he won't hear the conversation he's about to have with the criminals. Instead of blackmailing Superman for money, the crooks end up taking an unexpected trip.
You won't kill us. Everybody knows that Superman don't kill people, so how are you going to stop us?
You better put some warm clothing on.
Courtesy of Superman, to the top of a snowy mountain. Superman says they'll be okay there in the cabin, and that he'll bring food for them later. This being until he can figure out what to do with them. When Superman flies off, Ace decides that Superman is lying and would never bring him any food and will probably let them starve. So he talks Connie into climbing down the mountain, to which both of them fall to their death. In the end, we see Clark telling Candy about the deaths of the two, but Candy is never told what the item was that was stolen. At the point where Superman drops off Ace and Connie, there's opinions out there that Superman obviously knew the crooks would try to escape and thus likely die, making Superman's life a lot easier. While you could certainly argue that, but if we take Superman at his word, he was planning on bringing food back, and the crooks did have a cabin to stay in. But then again, was their attempted escape in the back of Superman's mind? Was Superman conveniently overlooking the possibility of the death of these criminals subconsciously? Or did Superman really assume there would be no way Connie and Ace would try and escape? The look Clark has at the end of the episode is sort of strange. Was he remorseful?
The guy and the woman, they fell off a cliff.
Well, what do you know? They fell off a cliff, did they?
Mm-hmm.
Here's my take. Superman in the 1950s was old school. He believed that the individual was responsible for their own actions. Thus, when he gave them the choice to stay put and live, he most likely believed that common sense would prevail and they would stay put. They knew Superman had a reputation for always keeping his word, but being a criminal, Ace could not accept that Superman would go out of his way to bring him food and check up on him as he promised. Superman thus was not guilty of murder, nor did he set him up to die. He simply put them in a situation where they could not escape. But Ace was the type that would rather die than be locked up, and he took Connie with him. This story reminds me of another story that came in the comics years later. Superman 22 that came out in 1988. Superman executed Phantom Zone criminals from another universe, a sort of parallel world. I believe Pocket Universe was the term they used. Zod and his followers had killed off millions of people from this Earth. Literally every human being on the planet. So Superman executed them rather than take the chance they might find a way to his Earth and kill more millions. Despite the fact this was not only reasonable thinking and completely necessary, Superman could not help but feel as though he himself was a murderer, and he exiled himself into space for a time. 1950s TV Superman, George Reeve, would have taken the task as a grim one, and one that would likely cause scars. He would have soldiered on with the business of fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. Take the moment in Man of Steel where Superman has to kill Zod to save the lives of a family that is in the way of Zod's heat vision. Zod basically gives Superman no choice, or at least we are led to believe that, and in the context of the movie, Superman would have been a villain himself if he hadn't have done something, no matter how drastic. That being said, perhaps the real issue is that we as Superman fans want him to be portrayed as perfectly honorable in every way, always adhering to his code of never taking a life, always keeping his word, and so on. Therefore, we might expect that the writers of these stories always create a scenario where Superman does indeed find a way to save the day and still keep his vow. So the question is really, do we want our heroes to be placed into situations where their morals can be truly tested to the maximum extent? Or do we want our characters preserved flawlessly? I don't know, I kind of land on both ways when it comes to Superman. There are limits though. Superman should always do the right thing under whatever the circumstances are. From time to time, he might have an error in judgment, as all humans do, but never anything super blatant. So what's your take on Superman killing? Is it best that writers never put Superman in that position to start with? Did Superman murder Ace and Connie on the TV series? Or was it their own crookedness and stupidity that got him killed? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Check out all the other videos on Superman on the TV Crazy Man channel, along with other great classic TV superheroes and other classic shows from when characters were cool, thanks to great actors and stories that were fun and full of adventure. Oh, on a trivia note, the actor that played Ace, Dan Seymour, also played on a couple of Batman episodes a few years later. Sadly, the actress that played Connie, I believe the way to say her name is Veda Ann Borg, died of cancer in 1973, and the actor that played Candy died of throat cancer in 1962. Well, that's it for this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you're less likely to miss upcoming videos on the classics. Have a great day.